We are right now worldwide confronted with an epidemic of personality disorders and of mental afflictions of all sorts, mainly narcissism from the personality disorders category, and depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and all sorts of addictions. And I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about the cause for all of this, and to explain to you how I believe we have got to this point, and what would the solution to this be? What would be the way out of this whole mess that we made? Hi, if you have no idea who I am, my name is Claudiu Manea. I'm a psychologist and a therapist, and for the past 10 years I've been helping families grow stronger together and function better together. So how did we get to this point? First of all, there is a mismatch between what we read in literature pertaining to mental disorders and personality disorders, and what we tend to see in real life. So whenever you read some case study, some research on narcissism, for example, the literature usually indicates that about 1 to 2% of the population has this personality disorder. But in real life, as we look around, we tend to observe that the actual percentage seems to be much higher than just 1 or 2%. Now, granted, this is a subjective observation, of course. It can be somewhat explained by the fact that, let's say that you are very preoccupied with the subject of narcissism, and for that reason your mind is outlining every narcissist that you are able to observe, and because you're focused so much on the subject, you tend to misrepresent the number of narcissists as a percentage in the whole population, and you tend to consider them to be much more numerous than they really are. Sure, that is one way that you can explain this phenomenon, but another way would be that the information in literature is outdated. Just as simple as that. It's outdated, and we are facing a current epidemic of narcissism. So the numbers are actually on the rise and are constantly rising. And the same can be said about anxiety, panic attacks, and all of that are actually documented to be on the rise. Now, when it comes to depression and anxiety, there have been some explanations given, like the pandemic, like the whole isolation and the current economic climate and all of that. But I do not consider any of those explanations to be fundamental as to the real cause of all of this. And I'm going to explain a little bit how this came to pass. So, like I said in other videos, if you plot a graph of people distancing themselves from religion, and you see that as the number of people identifying as atheists is on the rise, so does the number of reported mental afflictions. So as people lose their faith in God, the number of mental illnesses seems to be climbing. So these two things faith and mental health seem to be connected in some way. When one of those is on the rise, the other is on the decrease, and vice versa. So there is that, but going even deeper into the subject, the fact of the matter is that people have more and more begun to enthusiastically accept the idea that they do not need God in their life. And because of that, they initially felt a sense of relief. Relief of being released from the tyranny of God, like they say. But as soon as that initial enthusiasm faded, they came to realize that the relationship with God also had some benefits to it, like it provided them with a set of coping mechanisms and of tools that were no longer available upon them distancing from God. And what this more or less means is that when people have departed from faith, from religion, from their relationship with the divine, they have demolished a wall. And they demolished the wall thinking that that wall was a prison to them, that it was encroaching on their liberty, that it was limiting them in some way. But there is a way to look at the wall from one side and see it as a prison that doesn't allow you to freely move and do whatever it is that you want. But if you step outside and you look at the wall from the other side, you might come to find that the wall was never a prison. It was more like a fortress protecting you from things on the other side. So you can approach things and view the situation as you being imprisoned, but you could also view the situation as you being protected. And the problem when you tear down that wall is that you should have been wise enough to, before demolishing the wall, at least ask yourself, why was the wall there in the first place? Before you tear down something, make sure you are not inviting a greater threat in your life. And the fact of the matter is that as the wall of faith is torn down, people do not have all of the necessary abilities and the necessary skills to protect themselves from whatever is out there. And upon you tearing down the wall and having to face whatever is out there, you are told that the answers and all of the resources that you need are inside of you. And because you have renounced your faith, you do not get to appeal to a higher authority. You do not get to ask for help. So you are alone in this, and you have only yourself to rely on. And if you come to realize that you do not have all the answers, and nor do you have all the resources that you need to confront life's challenges and all of that, you come to the realization and you come to be taken over by depression and anxiety. Because if you are being told that the answer and the resources are in you and you do not find those answers and those resources, sooner or later you're going to come to the conclusion that there is something wrong with you, and that invites depression. And sooner or later you're going to realize that you are not completely equipped to protect yourself, and there is no one else left to protect you, which invites anxiety. And in this situation, anxiety and depression are very understandable to be going through, because look at the context and look at the situation in which you're at. Of course, you're going to feel depressed and or anxious. And the more you look inside, the more you become self-absorbed, the more you become convinced that, because you have put in the effort of looking for answers within, and now there is a sunk cost fallacy that you are facing. So I have put all this time into looking for the answers inside myself, so it must be true that the answers are there. I just haven't found them yet. And that's the sunken cost fallacy. You're not willing to cut your losses and just move on. You've invested all of this time and energy already, and you're not willing to call it quits. And so you push forward, but you push forward within yourself. And the more that you focus on yourself, the more you start to feel like you are the center of the universe. And if you do have some narcissistic traits, which a lot of people do, and if you constantly focus on yourself and you go deeper and deeper looking for answers within yourself, and you do have those narcissistic traits dormant, or at least not preventing you from functioning, those narcissistic traits get reinforced, and they get reinforced and reinforced and reinforced until eventually they get exacerbated. And once that happens, your narcissistic traits tend to converge and form a personality disorder known as narcissistic personality disorder. So NPD, like it is called, is not something that we are born with. It is just a potential that we are born with, some of us, but it is never more than a potential, except when the situation is ideal for that disorder to form. And by you constantly looking at yourself and you getting more and more convinced that all of the answers and all of the resources are in you, that actually creates the context necessary for that entire personality disorder to form. So you, and by the way, narcissistic personality disorder is a formidable prison. So you have turned down the walls of the whole faith and of your relationship with God, because you didn't want to be in prison, and you are imprisoning yourself in a much, much worse type of prison by doing exactly that. So if that makes sense to you, and if that explains to you how and why there seem to be more and more narcissists every day, there's your answer. And by the way, upon you distancing yourself from God, you're supposed to put something in place, because you, like I said, you tear down a wall and you're supposed to face the wild alone. And what do you put in place of that? Well, like I said, depression and anxiety naturally arise in this situation, so you're not really putting them in place. But what you do put in place is some sort of addiction or multiple addictions, usually, and or an eating disorder, which eating disorders can also be classified as some type of addiction, so it's pretty much more or less the same thing. But what you are putting in place, like I said, is an addiction, because it's acting as a coping mechanism to help you deal with whatever is out there. But you wouldn't have to deal with whatever is out there if you didn't tear down the wall in the first place. So it is, once again, a situation of your own doing, and it is a situation that is a consequence of some of your actions and decisions. So there are decisions that have negative consequences, and if you do decide one way or the other, I think that you should at least be aware of those consequences. So that was the point of this talk today. Hopefully it was helpful to you. If you found it interesting or useful and you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I post something. Whether I'll see you on the next one or not, I want to take the time to thank you for your time and for watching this up to the end. And I hope you have a great one. Thanks for watching and bye.